Football is back, baby, and the Rebels are no longer reaching for relevance. Head coach Barry Odom has transformed this program. We haven't seen this level of excitement or expectations for UNLV football in over 20 years. Today on Sin City Beat, we're getting you Rebel ready. Sin City Beat starts right now.
From Las Vegas, this is Sin City Beat.
Hello and welcome to Sin City Beat. I'm Mike Davis. Sin City Beat is the show that dissects the Vegas sports world through the eyes of the sports reporters leading the charge. Happy to have you with us for this special UNLV football season preview show, and I'm very happy to have this great lineup. Joining the action today, we have Mike Ramala, sports reporter with the Las Vegas Sun, Steve Cofield, host of Cofield and Company on ESPN Las Vegas, and our very own Paloma Villacana, sports reporter and anchor with Fox 5 Las Vegas and host of the Reb Zone here on Fox 5 with head coach Barry Odom, or as she calls him, Coach O-Dog. Great to have you guys with us. All right, so let's dive right in. The excitement can't be greater. The expectations for surrounding this team are sure even greater than usual as fans are ready for year two of the Rebels under head coach Barry Odom. And there's good reason for this Rebel resurgence. Last season was the Rebels' first 9-win season in decades, the best year they've had since 1984 when the Rebels reached 11 wins. And last season, the team finished second in the conference, losing the Mountain West Championship to Boise State. Fast forward to this season, though, a lot looks the same in the Mountain West, with Boise State still favored to win the conference and UNLV with the second best odds. So Steve Cofield, Barry Odom has already transformed this program once. Does he have it in him to take the Rebels to even another level?
He does, but it might not happen this year. I've said all summer, I think he's got a better roster. They're bigger, stronger than they've ever been, but the schedule got tougher. And now they're the hunted. You know, I think they were overlooked by some teams last year, so I think they're going to be a better team. They may not have the same win total, but they're going to play some good football this year. They're going to meet some expectations, but we'll see if they can get back to 9 wins.
What do they need to do to get to the next level, guys? I mean, we saw so much, there's so much enthusiasm surrounding this team, but what do they need to do to get to those 10, 11, 12 wins?
Well, first they've got to settle on a quarterback. They've got to get good quarterback play, which they got eventually last year. They've got 3 guys competing for the job, so if they get quarterback sorted out, their offense is pretty loaded at just about every other position. And defense, towards the end of last year, the defense kind of slowed down. They gave up too many big plays. That's why they ended up losing their final 3 games. So if they can sort out the back end of the defense, find a quarterback that can run this offense and put up video game numbers, I think they could be better than last year.
I mean, from previous regimes, right, Paloma, the identity, you know, from Marcus Arroyo to now to Barry Odom, what is the identity of this team? What has that identity been crafted thanks to Barry Odom? What is it?
I think we've seen a lot of leadership this fall camp, a lot of older, experienced guys, transfers from the SEC, transfers from the Big 12. Speaking of the defense, you know, the secondary is filled with transfers. I think they got bigger, faster, stronger. Just an older team, and especially in the quarterback room. I mean, we've seen Doug Brumfield, who was a freshman, Jada Mayava, who was a freshman. We're so used to seeing really young guys in starting positions. Now we're seeing guys who have 4 years of SEC experience or 3 years of Big 12 experience under their belt, and now they're starting corner, starting receiver. So I'm excited to see a more experienced, older team, and like Cofield said, definitely a tougher schedule.
I mean, Steve, you've been covering this team a long time. To now have a coach who gives the vibes of like an SEC level coach, right? I mean, that's pretty exciting stuff. We're not used to that.
Yeah, I mean, it takes a reprogramming for a lot of us in the media and the fans, because we came in for the spring and the team and the coaches were talking about failing at the end of the year, and you're like, 9 wins, a bowl game? That was great. But that's not their goal. They want to win the Mountain West Conference. Now they want to get in the college football playoff. And I'll tell you, to me, the identity is fascinating because high-powered offense is the identity. The go-go offense with Brennan Marion is the identity. They've got a defensive coach who brought his defensive coordinator with him, and they're still working on the defensive end, but they are to be feared on offense because now they have quarterbacks who can get the edge. The run game is tremendous. They're going to change up the run game. And now I think they filled out the receiving core. They've got a great tight end. So this is an offense, scary offensive program with the defense on the come.
I love it. Mike, what are just the overall sentiments, general-wise, you're feeling as you're heading into this season covering this squad?
I feel like this is the peak team. Like Barry Odom took over. It's only been 2 years, but this is what they were building toward. To Paloma's point about the seniors, if you look at their depth chart, I think 9 of 11 offensive starters are seniors, 10 of 11 on defense. They've got an All-American at wide receiver.
Yeah.
They've got the Mountain West Defensive Player of the Year at linebacker. Like they've got 3 All-Mountain West offensive linemen, all seniors. Like this is what they're building toward. It's not a rebuild anymore. This is the finished product. This is the year. If they're going to make the playoffs, if they're going to make the run, it's going to be this year.
And I got to point out, people don't like the transfer portal. And when you hear numbers like UNLV's turned over 50 new players last year, 55 this year, but then Mike lists all these seniors. So what they did is when they came in, they nailed who needed to stay around. They've developed guys from back in the Arroyo area to be leaders now, but then they've augmented with the transfer portal. So it's kind of the best of both worlds. They're changing the roster a lot, but they still have a core of 18 to 22 guys that they really like.
And that's not easy to do. And we're going to be getting into all that great stuff from Ricky White to the college football playoff, all that stuff. We're just getting started here on Sin City Beat. After the break, we're taking a look at the schedule, and yes, the college football playoff. It's expanding to 12 teams. Is college football giving March Madness vibes? And what's UNLV's chances to make that college football playoff? All that and more after these words.
You're watching Sin City Beat.
Welcome back to Sin City Beat. Well, taking a look at this schedule, UNLV has some very tough tests. They kick off the season at Houston, a team with a new head coach and Willie Fritz, who did some good work at Tulane. And beyond the rigorous Mountain West schedule with the usual suspects of Boise State and Fresno State, the Rebs have to face off against 4 Power 4 caliber teams in Houston, Kansas, Syracuse, and Oregon State. Last season, the Rebels finished 9-5. Taking a look at this schedule, Mike Grimala, can this team actually reach 10 or 12 wins?
Of course they can. 10 wins is probably the goal they should be shooting for. As if they come in under 10 wins, they're probably going to be disappointed in the season that they had. There are some tough games out there. Boise State, you get them at home. That's a game you can win. They go on the road at Kansas. Kansas beat them in the bowl game last year. I don't think those two teams there's so much of a gap between them. There are some other tough games. At Houston's not going to be easy. They host Fresno State. These are, could be good teams, but UNLV is in a position to beat good teams now. It used to be if UNLV beat anyone that was decent, it was a major upset, and that was their game of the year. But now they should win a lot of these games. Like they should be 10-2, 11-1 at the end of the year.
Well, here's the funky thing about college football. There's always that feeling like you got to get off to a pretty good start, because once these college teams lose that first game out the gate or the second one and you fall back, you feel like you can't even make the college football playoff. So how critical is getting a win right off the bat on the road with Houston?
I think every win is going to be crucial. When I've sat down with the players, their goal, honestly, the first thing out of their mouth is the 12-team playoff. And to do that, you need to be a Mountain West champion to have a spot in the 12-team playoff. I mean, I don't even get to the first question, and they're already speaking up about the 12-team playoff. Right. So I sat down with Cameron Oliver, and I asked him, I was like, hey, winning the Mountain West Championship, and he goes, let me stop you there. That is the conversation in the building. So yes, they're going to take it game by game, but when I'm talking they want to win all 12, they want to win all 12 and make it to the college football playoff,
we would love that.
Should excite Vegas hearing that.
100%. I think for the casual college football fan, this 12-team playoff is super exciting. The crazy thing here, Steve, is, and I want you to explain this to our audience, there's actually a world where they could win the Mountain West and still not make the 12-team playoff.
Well, because they're competing with the rest of Group of 5 schools. So the dangerous part is Liberty and Appalachian State. Right. They're going to meet up. But beyond that, their schedules are kind of void of any quality opponents now. What do they respect? Do they respect an unbeaten record from one of those teams more than a team that might have, I think a Mountain West team at best who wins the championship is going to have 2 losses. That's the best. I don't think anyone's going unbeaten. Right. It's a really tough conference. You're also competing with the AAC, and Memphis is a quality team there. There's other quality schools as well, so it's not like the Mountain West has a slot. The Group of 5 has. So
here's my question: if they get 2 losses but they win the Mountain West Conference, do they make the college football playoff? What's your prediction on that?
That would be tight. It would depend on what Liberty. If is Liberty coming in with 1 loss, is Texas State coming in with a loss? You've got to weigh that, but I don't think 10-2 is probably going to be good enough, just because it seems like there's always some Group of 5 team that is out there that's going to be better than that. So 11-1 maybe, depending on who you lose to. UNLV's, Kansas is probably going to be ranked when they play them. Boise State might be ranked when they play them. There's a chance for quality wins. 11-1, win the Mountain West. You're definitely watching that selection show.
And just remember, this is all politics too. I mean, the college football selection committee, politics. Fan bases, venues, the brand, all of that plays a factor.
I'll say 10-2 can get them in. Obviously, they have to win the Mountain West Conference Championship, but then they have to win against Kansas. That'll be a massive quality victory. They have to beat Syracuse, and they have to beat Oregon State, because in the mind of voters, are going to look at that and go, those are Power 4 quality schools, even though Oregon State right now is on the outside in the Pac-2. But they'd have to win those 3 games. If they go 10-2 to get in.
All right, so Kansas, Syracuse, and the Oregon State game. All right, prediction before we wrap up this block real quick. Paloma, are they in the college football playoff? Are they one of the 12? Yes or no?
Like we mentioned, if they beat the Power 4 schools and Boise State, in my opinion, then yes.
I'll take that as a yes.
I think they'll be in the driver's seat for the Mountain West title game. If they win that, they're in.
No.
All right. We got 2 yeses and 1 no. All right, we'll see what happens. Now, one major change for this football team, yes, it's the quarterback position. There's QB questions, and the panel has the answers you need. Stick around. Okay, so there's going to be a new face at quarterback for the Rebels. You can thank the transfer portal and NIL money for that one. After starting 14 games for the Rebels, quarterback Jaden Mayava left the Rebels, entered the transfer portal, and initially committed to Georgia, but he ultimately ended up at USC with QB guru Lincoln Riley. He's coached Baker Mayfield, Kyler Murray, Jalen Hurts, and of course Caleb Williams. Now, the Rebels are set to compete with 3 potential quarterbacks at the helm. We got 6-year transfer from Campbell, Haj Malik Williams, senior transfer from Holy Cross, Matthew Saluka, and returning senior Cameron Friel. So Paloma, what's your initial thoughts on this QB battle, and how much will this team actually miss Mayava at the quarterback spot?
Well, I think number one, it's just a more experienced quarterback room. Like we mentioned, 3 seniors, a 5th-year senior, a 6-year senior, and Cam Friel. Honestly, the last week of training camp, fall camp, all 3 quarterbacks looked really sharp to me. All can throw the ball, all can run the ball. Obviously, Matt Sluka, we know he's a runner. He played lacrosse his entire career. But who I think takes the week 1, snap 1 is Matt Sluka. He's very, very dynamic, can take the ball downfield, can throw the ball. He has lots of weapons this year. They're super deep at the receiver position, running back position. So we know this go-go offense is so dynamic. It's so fast. It's so tricky. They like to do a lot of different things. So do I see possibly 2 quarterbacks against Houston? Maybe.
Interesting.
We never know what's up Brendan Marion's sleeve, but I think Matt Sluka wins the job this year.
Okay, so let me ask you this, because it's a fair question. There's that old adage, that old saying, if you got, more than 1 quarterback, you really have no quarterbacks, right? So, I mean, the fact that there's 3 up until this point of the season in contention, and we really don't have a clear-cut choice, is that an issue for this team?
I don't think anyone really seized the job in training camp. I don't think anyone really outplayed by such a wide margin that the coaches had to name him the starter immediately. But I'm also of the belief that this offense, really, whichever quarterback gets in there, they're still going to score 1 million points.
Really?
UNLV has an All-American wide receiver. They've got another All-American punt returner who plays in the slot. They've got
we're gonna
the
talk
best
about
offensive line in the conference. They're going to score a ton of points no matter who's playing quarterback. I think the choice is basically just by upside. Matthew Sluka is the guy with the most upside. Haj Malik Williams, probably a little safer choice, probably a higher completion percentage type guy. But no matter who they choose, they're going to score a ton of points.
So Barry Odom, when he makes this decision, what do you think he's looking for? What's the determining factor, Steve?
Game 1,
yeah,
first rep. I think he's looking for experience. They mention a lot of times take care of the ball. As Mike pointed out, really the quarterback just he's going to have to make plays, but take care of the ball. Don't screw things up. So I know you're going Sluka too, right?
I think Sluka's going to start.
I'm going Haj Malik Williams because
Really?
He's been there longer. I think he knows the system. He's a safer choice. These guys are right. Sluka has probably the higher upside, But they're both going to play. I think they absolutely 99%. Like 99%. I don't know who the starter is. I think it's Haj Malik. But I think they're both going to play at Houston. They're going to give them different looks. And by the way, it does not surprise me that they went with with 3 quarterbacks. That is just the way they do things. They're going to make Houston have to think about it.
Yeah, the depth chart had listed 3 quarterbacks. There really wasn't any differentiation. But so explain to me what that actually looks like. When we say there's 2 quarterbacks playing in the same game, what does that actually mean?
I think Haj Malik will get a couple of series, and then they will switch to Sluka, and they'll get a few series each in the first half, and then they see where they are. If they're behind, they make a choice. They judge who's been more explosive, who's run things more safely, and been protective of the ball.
And it's kind of funny that people freak out about this because at fall camp, it's like every play is designed for each quarterback, honestly.
Really?
Like the strength is of each quarterback. Matt Sluka can run, Haj Malik can throw, Cam Friel has an arm. So Brennan Marion has his plays all designed for each quarterback, so I'm not surprised.
And you don't think that's difficult for these young guys to come in and not really have, ease their way into the game, get a couple series going, just to be able to get pulled in and pulled out on a whim's.
If we're going into week 3 and they're still playing more than one quarterback, something has gone horribly wrong.
Okay.
Week 1, I could see it, maybe not a 50-50 split or even 75-25, but if you want to give the second quarterback a drive in the first half, a drive in the second half, see how it looks, sure. If you want to do something like that against Utah Tech in week 2, because they're going to win that game by 100 anyways, go ahead.
Interesting.
At some point, they are going to have to make a choice, because I don't know about you guys, but splitting quarterbacks just never seems
I don't
to
like
work.
that.
No, you're right. After going into the Kansas game, they got to have someone. But you got to remember, they're not young. They're seniors. They're experienced. Haj had already committed before Sluka, so Sluka had a lot of opportunities. He knew what he was buying into, and so did Haj Malik. So they're mature. They can handle this.
Okay, last question before we wrap up this block. I'm an intangibles guy. I love intangibles. From a leadership, a locker room standpoint, the guy you just want as your quarterback in that QB room, who's that guy from your standpoint?
Haj Malik Williams was the guy who assumed that role in the offseason. Like in training camp, he was the guy during breaks who would get the offense together. He'd give them encouraging words. He'd laid into them a few times, like, hey, we got to pick it up.
Okay.
Coaches pointed to him as the guy who became the leader of the offense. So if you're going intangibles, it's probably Haj Malik Williams just because he's been here longer and he has a better grasp of the offense.
Okay,
he's probably the intangible guy.
You guys agree with that?
I think there's just so many leaders on this team. Like we saw Jackson Woodard talk about coaching the other side of the ball, which is all about the culture at UNLV, that these defensive players are coaching offensive players. We've seen these guys be so vocal. It doesn't matter if you're the QB position. There's leaders throughout the entire football team. So that's exciting to see.
And you meant a quarterback, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know about Sluka yet. I think he can be a leader. And you know how you become a leader? Off the field, you have to be a leader. But on the field, you make plays. So Sluka makes a lot of plays. Guys will gravitate to him and go, they're not going to say, hey, we want him in there. But that's going to be the feeling. If he's the high-level guy, the explosive guy, he'll be a leader.
All right, there you go. I love it. All right, guys, next up, we're going beyond quarterback. Yes, we've alluded to some of these studs that you need to know. We got you covered. There's more Sin City Beat after the break. Welcome back to Sin City Beat. Well, this roster is loaded with some promising young talent. Here's the names you need to know. Steve, let's start with you and Ricky White III. The senior wide receiver is set for a big season as the Associated Press has already added him to the preseason All-America list. How big of a year are you expecting from him? And is this guy like a legitimate first-round talent for the NFL draft?
I don't know if he's a first-round talent. I think he plays in the NFL. He's a hard worker. I mean, we've talked about his leadership. Everyone, gravitates to him. They follow his lead. I've heard the freshmen are like, wow, Ricky White. And, he's got the pedigree. He was a high-level recruit at Michigan State, a five-star guy. And, man, he's worked and worked and worked, and he's had to work with a lot of quarterbacks, and now he's got fresh quarterbacks again. I expect a big year from him.
I'm pretty excited about this. The other guy that everybody's talking about, Jacob DeJesus, my producer, James Edward Barrickman IV, he calls him DeJesus. That's how good he thinks he is, but it's Jacob DeJesus. Tell us a little bit about him, Paloma. I know you've talked with him extensively.
One of the best returners in the country. I mean, if you want to talk about a versatile, just a Swiss Army knife that can do a little bit of everything, play running back, play receiver, play every single punt return, kick return. He's all over the football field. I think last year he had a 96-yard return. He told us that he wants at least 5 special teams touchdowns this year, at least 5. So the thing about him is he's just so fast, he's so speedy, he's small, he cuts through the defense, and he's really exciting to watch. So 21, you already know that he's one of the best players on the field, and I just love his story too, coming from a junior college, really working for his opportunity. He has a fiance, he has a daughter, and he's totally playing for NFL dreams.
Hey, I'm just going to say this for everybody at home. If you're playing college football EA Sports 25, Ricky White and Jacob DeJesus, they're bad in that game. And bad meaning good, like Jay-Z said. I mean, these guys, they're really good. Mike, real quickly, we got about a minute and a half left here. Besides those two, who are the studs that everybody at home watching, who do they need to know? Maybe give us a defensive guy, somebody that we just need to know who's an absolute stud.
Well, Jackson Woodard is the centerpiece of the defense. He is their middle linebacker. He is the Mountain West Defensive Player of the Year in the preseason. He's the leader. He's the guy who comes in and sets the tone for everyone. He's calling the plays. He's a hard hitter. And then there are 2 cornerbacks, I think. Cameron Oliver is a guy who's been here for 4 years now. He's a lockdown guy. He's always good for 4 or 5 interceptions. And then they brought in a guy, Tony Grimes, who's a former 5-star prospect. He's got 1 year of college left. They brought him in. He's on the other side. He looked great in the offseason. He looked great in training camp. So you've got the stud middle linebacker, who's the best in the conference, and then you've got 2 cornerbacks who are both look pretty outstanding. So that's the foundation of a good defense.
I love it, guys. Thank you so much. What a remarkable panel we had for this UNLV football season preview show. Paloma Villicana, Mike Ramala, and Steve Cofield. Guys, go Rebs. Thank you so much for joining us, and I'm Mike Davis. We'll see you next time here on Sin City Beat. We're all pumped for this Barry Odom era, some more UNLV Rebs football. Thank you guys for being here. We'll see you next time.